All right, what's up, guys? Sorry it's been so long since I posted. I've been busy at the beginning of the year taking photos and traveling and living life off the internet. But I'm back, and today's gonna be the first of an ongoing series that I'm loosely calling How I Made This. And essentially what we're gonna do is take one photo from my portfolio and we're gonna break down on how I made that. I'm gonna start with going over what gear I used to make it, camera settings, and most importantly, I'm gonna talk about how I set up lighting in that process. So let's roll that intro and we'll get right into it. Okay, so the image we're gonna be doing today is for a hair salon client of mine. They're called Bokeh Saveda. They're in Pasadena, California. And the owner approached me and asked me to do some images that looked like they could be out of Vogue or Vanity Fair, done by Annie Leibovitz. So that's what we did. And this is the lighting setup I decided on. And this is the lighting setup I went with, and I'm excited to show it to you guys. So before we actually hop into what exact gear I used, I just wanted to say that gear doesn't actually matter so much. You don't need these exact camera models or lights or light modifiers. You can do this with almost any brand and any kind of camera, any kind of light. So keep that in mind. This isn't gonna be a full gear review. I just want to share with you the equipment that I actually did use for this shot to give you an idea. So let's pop right into that. Next up in my process to make this image is to choose a camera setting. Now, you might be asking yourself, why are you choosing a camera setting before you actually have the lights set up? And the reason for that is because we're shooting in a studio and we have full control of the lighting. We can add or as much light as we want or as little light as we want. So I wanna start with my actual camera settings and the actual exposure that I'm gonna set on my camera before I set up the lighting, because I already know what look I want. So this image that I'm shooting is gonna be of 3 people. It's gonna be a group shot. So I know that I need a little bit of flexibility with the focal length. I don't wanna set it at too low of an f-stop, because if I do, and I have one of my subjects behind the other, one of those people is gonna be out of focus. So right off the bat, I know that I need this to be at f8, just to make sure there's enough fall off in the background, but not too much fall off that none of the subjects are getting out of focus. So f8 is gonna be my f-stop. Since I'm shooting with strobes, I know that my shutter speed needs to be right around 1/25 of a second. So I'm gonna keep it right there. And I also know that I would like to keep the highest quality of image possible. So I'm gonna try to shoot this at ISO 100. All right, so I know what my camera settings are. Before we've even set up a light, turned on a light, set up a light stand, it's gonna be 1/25 of a second, f8 at 100 ISO. All right, so let's dive right into the lighting here. I have a little diagram pulled up. We shot this on a dark gray seamless background. We have 3 subjects. And again, we're shooting this on a Sony a7R with an 85mm lens. All right, so first things first is my key light. I'm gonna have my key light at 75% power on this strobe. I'm gonna get the light as close as I possibly can to the subjects, because the closer the light, the softer the light is gonna be. The next light I set up is my fill light. If you don't know what a fill light is, it's essentially there to retain quality in your blacks and dark parts of your image, so the shadow parts. So I set up another softbox in the back right behind my camera, and this one is set at 50% power. It's actually 25% less than my main light. Now the reason for this is I don't want the fill light to affect the actual look of the image. If I turn that fill light's power up too much, or I match the same power output as my main light, it would actually flatten out the light quite a bit, and I'd lose that whole moody look, that whole Vanity Fair Vogue look that I was going for. So I wanna actually keep it really low. I wanna keep it 25% lower, and you're not gonna see a lot of change in the look of the image, but what will happen is there's gonna be a lot of more detail in the blacks, and the contrast won't be as harsh, and when you get it into Lightroom and you get it in your computer, there's gonna be a lot more detail for your computer to work with. So if you need to bring the shadows up or down, it's not gonna get real grainy, it's not gonna get real noisy. All right, so that's the reason for the fill light. Next up is a black V-flat on the left side of the subjects. Now this is serving 2 purposes for me. First of which is to block off some of the light coming from the edge of the softbox, my main light that we have there. I don't want any of that light, of my main light, spilling onto the background because I want to be able to control the background light in a more exact manner. And anything that spills off onto the background is something that I got to deal with later. So I put a black V flat up there. And then the second purpose for that is, what you'll see in a minute, is that we have a edge light set up back there. And I don't want any of that spilling into the camera lens and giving me lens flare. So black V flat, really important to just block off some of that stuff. Next up, a white V flat. Now, the white V flat is actually serving a little bit like the fill light is. What's happening here is I set it up to the right of the subject, and the light from the main light, that main softbox, the first light that we set up, is actually gonna go bounce off the white and reflect back onto the edge of the subject's face. It's gonna be extremely subtle, but again, it's the same thing as with the fill light. It's gonna give your camera a little more information in the darks to work with once you bring it into your computer. So kind of important to have a bounce board over there, a reflector over there, or a white V flat on that side, just to kick back a little more light into edge that doesn't have any light. Next up is my edge light, or also called my hair light. We have another Octabank set up in the back there. Again, this strobe is set at 50% power. It's the same setting as the fill light is. I don't want this to be a really strong edge light. Now that comes down to my taste and my style. I like a really subtle hair light a lot of the times when I'm doing these kind of portraits. Next up is another Octabank, again set at 50%, but this one is actually gonna be turned towards the background. I just want this to spill across the background. Again, really subtle. It just adds a little texture into the background, makes it look like they're not standing in a cave when I take their photo. Now, you know guys, like, I know this can seem like overkill using 4 lights and 2 V flats, but it's about the details. It's about those little extra things you do, that little subtle hair light that separates the subject from the background, that little extra light on the background to show a little bit of texture. We've put ourselves in a studio situation with a dark gray background, essentially the most boring location you could possibly get. But boring can be beautiful and simple can be beautiful, but you just need to add a little depth and you need to add a little interest to your image. And how you do that is lighting things separately and lighting things in an intentional way. That's what sets you apart from the next person. All right guys, that's it for today. Like I said, I'm gonna be doing these on a very regular basis. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and please, please, please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, or if you're in the process of trying this lighting setup out and you're just kind of stuck, feel free to hit me up. I'm totally happy to help, and I will see you guys later. Have a good day. Bye.